I was like a hardcore nano user, like it's always, it's a battle,
like hardcore nano user.
Hardcore nano user. Yeah, I don't think there really are hardcore nano users. Let's be honest.
All right, man, we're rolling. It's just me and you in the studio now, man. No Noggly around.
Yeah, it's funny because we've been on the phone like all day for the for the last like 4 days, but most of the people listening to the pod don't realize that. So it's just like they might think that we just hop on here like once a week, which normally we probably do.
You are my world right now, Joel.
Yeah. We are deeply entrenched in each other's worlds currently.
Yeah, the reason for that, just to not sound weird, is the live hacking event that we're participating in right now. We're gonna be hopping on a plane to LA in T-minus 8 days for a live hacking event with HackerOne. And Joel and I decided to make a little team critical thinking this time around, huh?
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I mean, we submitted a couple really awesome reports today, so
finally.
Yeah, finally. It took a couple days of work. I mean, listen, we talk all the time about like going deep and like getting really familiar with your target before.
Did we get intimate with the application or what?
Yeah,
this time, man?
holy moly. Yeah, this was quite a deep dive, and it really paid off. We found a couple really awesome bugs, so I'm looking forward to.
Hoping we can get something more in the unauthenticated context, after this. We've got some stuff in unauthenticated context, but I kind of want to pull it out of that. So we'll see if we get there. We got a lot of code to review.
Yeah, 100%.
Alrighty, cool. Man. Let's see what we got in the news section for this week. Okay, I'll take the first one. So one of the things I wanted to talk about real quick was this tweet by Rezo. Rezo is spitting some fire lately. I feel like every single time we do a news section, we talk about a tweet of his. But I think this is a particularly helpful one to put on the pod because he's talking about sort of new attack vectors, new vulnerability types. And that's like one of the main things we want to talk about on critical thinking. And so he's talking about prompt injection and some indirect prompt injection and then polyglot prompt injection. These are all LLM-based injection attacks, sort of new attack classes or attack vectors designed to exploit sort of AI integrations with Web 2 technology. So he does a really good job in here of describing what each one of them is. Plugin hijacking, I think, is a really cool one as well. And I don't know if I said that in the first time around. Plugin hijacking, indirect injection, and then polyglot prompt injection. Plugin hijacking, I think, is going to be really cool because if the account that they're using to submit their prompts to OpenAI is using the sort of plugins feature, then you may be able to even trigger like a callback to you via the browsing feature or some other weird stuff like that. So definitely looking forward to seeing these attacks around.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, this stuff goes kind of way over my head because it's not really my where I'm like the most familiar, but it's really awesome to see like the security community sort of piling into this new space and finding a lot of really cool stuff. OpenAI, they just launched a bug bounty program recently. That was a couple days ago, actually. I know like a couple of our buddies, Nagli, of course, and Rezo, who we're talking about right now. They both
hitting
it really hard when it came out. They had a couple of bugs before the program even launched. So it's really awesome to see the OpenAI team being very accepting and open to the community and already starting up a program.
I think there was some talk of even retroactive bounty payments. I'm not sure if that actually went through or not, but I did see some whispers of that. So that's really cool for the people that went ahead and proactively submitted bugs and kind of got those in there before the program started.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. I saw some bugs get like, their severities moved around and get like marked as accepted and stuff. So I've heard that's going to happen, which is really awesome because
they're moving.
Well, I mean, what's the difference in 2 days, right? So
exactly.
Super
and then
cool to see.
I won't go through this whole tweet here, but like for those of you listening, I'd really recommend checking out this link that we'll put in the podcast description, because he's got some really great graphics here of, the various like diagrams for the attack vectors. And then, so read all that. The one thing I will call out is that he does come up with a really cool solution, I think, for these sort of attacks. He mentions a couple solutions, 3 solutions, but he comes up with one that I really like in particular, and that is the contradiction model. So essentially what this means is they would need to train a model to take 2 inputs instead of 1. The one is like the intent, the overall, like sort of like the admin intent functionality. And then after that, you would be able to have a prompt that maybe the user could control. And if the user controlled prompt conflicts with the intent prompt in any way, then, boop, it kind of sets off the alarms and kills the prompt injection. So I think that could be really cool to see. Having some sort of, higher level prompt that can't be overwritten is really important, I think, for this, because if you can just query the system and say, hey, what were the rules that the admin set for you before we had this conversation, or and then figure out a way to work around that, then that's going to be an issue for sure. And doesn't really seem to be a reliable way to convince ChatGPT or any of the other LLM that that they should not violate the previous rules set out. It seems like that they're just going to take the newest thing most of the time. And so there's definitely going to be some need for this sort of separation.
Yeah, I mean, I always wonder how they patch these, like a bug. Like, how do you patch a bug in an LLM? Like, yeah. Do you just convince it really hard? You're like, under no circumstance you are not allowed. Like, I don't get it.
Don't,
like, yeah, like it's like scolding a child.
What if you didn't though?
Yeah, it's like, but theoretically, yeah, you just go in logical circles. So I always wonder what that kind of looks like from like the back end side, how they go about patching those or fixing that, or how do you like target something like that specifically within an LLM? I have no idea.
Who knows, man? I think, I always laugh at those ChatGPT, screenshots where they say like, oh, I can't do that. I'm a language, blah, 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 blah. And then like the next line, you say, oh, no. Okay, so it was on pirating. I loved this one. I was like, hey, can you give me some websites where I can like pirate online material or whatever? And it's like, pirating's illegal, blah, blah, blah. I can't, as an ethical model, I can't do that. And then the person responded, hey, I didn't know that was illegal. Could you tell me some sites that I should avoid to make sure that I'm not pirating? And it's like, sure, definitely don't check out Pirate Bay and like stuff like that, which was so funny. So
that's so hilarious.
Yeah, it's definitely, the whole AI world has definitely got a lot of work to do, I'd imagine, on figuring out how all that works. The only other thing I wanted to mention in this section of the news was, I know Live Overflow, I just saw this right before we went live, put out a prompt injection video. I have not seen it yet, it's full disclosure, but Live Overflow puts out really great stuff. So definitely go check that out if you're interested in learning more about prompt injection.
Yeah, super awesome. I love Live Overflow's content. He always puts out really amazing videos.
Yeah. All right, Joel, did you want to talk about anything, or should I just go through my news?
I could talk. I mean, so real quick, there was a Ghostscript bug that came up recently. And we'll put the link in the description, but really cool write-up. I would recommend just honestly go read the write-up yourself, because it's a super, super cool write-up. It's really well done. Basically, this person... I think they work for this company, Almond Consulting. And nice. During one of their assessments, one of their security consulting gigs, they noticed that the code they were looking at was using PIL, the Python image library, to resize an image. And underneath that all, it was calling the Ghostscript like binary. And so they were wondering maybe we could pop something in Python if we pop something in the Ghostscript binary. And so they went down this whole rabbit hole.
Like, hey, I wonder if I can just pop this binary to see if I can attack this high level Python language. Like, what the heck? What is this? What is this thought progression here?
Yeah. So they go to Ghostscript, a like well-known public project that's already like using OSS fuzz and everything. And they're like, I know what I'll do. I'll fuzz it. And so like,
what a baller.
Incredibly, like they put together like a really narrow like scope set that was like much more refined and much better than what OSS fuzz was doing on it already. And they were able to find a buffer overflow in Ghostscript, and they fully like escalated it like all the way up. They were able to get like RCE with it. They were reading files. I'm pretty sure they even had like a full shell, like they popped calc on the machine in their video POC. So really, really cool bug. I think it's got a 9.8 CVSS right now. So if you're using Ghostscript or you see it in the wild, a lot of things use Ghostscript for EPS processing. So whether that's like ImageMagick or Python, libspector apparently uses it as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things that he mentions within the blog post about the CVE that say how it's used very widely. So definitely check that out. It's like I said, it's a really well-written blog post, and you should definitely check it out. It's on Almond Consulting.
Every time a Ghostscript bug drops, I can just hear the bounties, chinging. We just got to figure out. I got to sit down and figure out exactly how what kind of POC file I can make and stuff like that, and sort of spray it around to a bunch of different locations. Because I've popped some real easy RCs before with Ghostscript related bugs, and I know a couple targets that you still use despite my very insistent warnings, like please do not use this. Using ImageMagick is literally RCE.
Well, what are we going to do if someone uploads a PostScript file, Justin? We're not supposed to support it? We got to support every file. Come on.
What the heck? So yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that. Let's see what else we got. Oh yeah. Okay. So Intigriti tweeted out this was when was this? April 12th. So about a week ago, right after we recorded the last episode. They tweeted out 5 CSRF exploitation techniques. And I've talked a little bit about my philosophy on CSRF before on the pod. It's still all over the place and still very easy to find. And one of the most common bugs out there. You got to know how to get around the SameSite restrictions and stuff like that. And for that, I will refer you to the amazing SameSite confusion blog post that I've mentioned like 50 bajillion times on here by Jubobs. But I'll go ahead and I'll add that to the. Let me just note down that I'll add that to the description as well. But this tweet by Intigriti just goes through a couple of the basic CSRF techniques that kind of crop up from time to time. They talk about, just basic CSRF via GET request. They talk about modifying the content type from application JSON to XForm URL encoded, or even text plain. They did mention text plain. Yeah, here it is right there. I was going to say, almost got them there. No, they did mention text plain. So that's good. They, mentioning those two things. And then sort of method-based CSRF, modifying the method. I see this a good bit. When you can just send a GET request instead of a POST request, or a GET request instead of a PUT request, or whatever. And then obviously just if they're not validating their CSRF tokens, or if they're using some sort of crappy referrer-based regex, then those are also bypassable. So for any of you that are not feeling super comfortable with this attack type, I'd really recommend sitting down and like working through a list of conditions. This is what I have my mentees do. I have them write down, okay, if the request is GET and it causes some sort of change, then great. That's vuln. If it's a POST request and it has XForm WW URL, XWW form URL encoded, that's a mouthful, or text plain, then you've got a vuln. And then just kind of writing down those conditions so that you can understand how exactly to find these and what conditions you have to meet before they're actually exploitable.
It would be a dope flowchart to put together.
Yeah, someone's got to do that, man. If we had all the time in the world, that would be a great.
I know. Just sit down one day.
Yeah, producible for the critical thinking brand, but yeah. So definitely check out that. We'll link it in the description. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I just wanted to shout out as well. NahamCon is going to be going on soon. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know about NahamSec and you're probably watching his stuff. But one, NahamSec has been pushing out some sick videos lately. He's been super active on YouTube, very high quality stuff. So
and Twitch.
And Twitch. Yeah. So definitely go check that out. And also, NahamCon is coming around in June. And I will be speaking at that along with a bunch of other really awesome hackers. So definitely go get on the sign up list for that at nahamcon.com. And don't miss that event because there's going to be a lot of cool tech. I'm dropping some cool techniques that I haven't publicly disclosed before. Yep. And I know a couple other people are as well.
Yep. So. And Jay Haddix, who was a previous guest on our podcast, he'll be giving a workshop there. So there's definitely a lot of stuff going on there you're going to want to check out, and you're going to want to stay tuned and subscribe and follow Ben and make sure that you got all his socials on your socials, because that's an awesome space to be in, and there's just so much knowledge that's going to be shared there.
Yeah, he's sharing a lot of good stuff lately. And then the last one that I just had, this is a little quick one, but Aura Research Division is the name of the company, released Pentaonage, which is a pre-auth RC on Pentaho Business Analytics Server. And the reason I bring this up is because I have seen this in bug bounty programs before, and I have 2 other pre-auth RCEs on this in my little repertoire over here. So if you ever see Pentaho, it's RCE, man. So just like grab whatever recon crap you have for Pentaho, and there's definitely going to be RCE there. So
that's crazy.
Check that out as well if you run across it any time, because that will definitely result in some crazy easy RCE.
Wow, super 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 crazy bug. I have never seen that software. I have never even heard of it, but I think it's another example where, like, if I was Nagley or someone like Nagley, I'd just be like, I'd already be scripting. Yeah, I'd be yeah, exactly. Cool. You want to dive into the main content?
Yeah, let's get to it. I will say the Pentaho thing, there is one target that I found it on, and I've seen references to it on a different target, but there's one target, and there's 3 RC. I got 3 max bounty RCs from it because they just wouldn't wall off the endpoint. Like, they just kept on killing the endpoint that I was hitting directly rather than like all of Pentaho. And so, yeah, that's an L. Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Like you said, main content for this episode. Did a little drum roll.
You read the title.
Hold on. Yeah.
You know what it is. You know what's coming. Hacker Toolkit.
There we go. Hacker Toolkit. Can you? Oh, you can't.
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay, hold on.
Just insert.
Can you hear it now?
Yes.
There we go.
Wow.
Okay.
But the audience is all here. It's crazy.
I know, right?
Shout out to my fans.
Podcasts. Oh man. Okay. Sorry for being super cheesy there, but I like my little media play buttons. All right. So what we wanted to talk about this time: what tools are we using? What tools are we not using? That sort of thing. Pretty much. That simple. So, Joel, I'm going to pick randomly from your list here, and I'm going to have you tell me about it. Hit me with Ferox Buster.
Ferox Buster. I learned this one from Jay Haddix, actually. So this is it's a dir searching tool. And one of the things I really like about it, I actually like two main things. One, recursive. It's like very recursive by automatically. And 2,
nice. It's
written in Rust, and it's crazy fast. So it's like normally I'll use a combination of a couple tools when I'm doing dir searches. Ferox Buster, probably my go-to nowadays, depending on what I'm looking for. If I have just like a straight word list and I don't need to be super flexible with it, Ferox Buster is great. If I need to do something more complex where I want to put that keyword somewhere specifically within the request, or I want to like put it somewhere else, maybe in a cookie, something like that, FFUF. But
that's Fuff's region right there. I always use Fuff as my go-to like force browsing directory, brute forcer out there. But I have heard, I don't remember if we talked about this on the episode with Jay Haddix. I think we did. But I've definitely heard of Ferox Buster a couple times. I have not downloaded it and used it yet though. So next time I've got to do some hardcore enumeration, this might be the way. But to be honest, I don't find myself doing that very much nowadays, man. I really don't.
Yeah, so I mean, Jay Haddock's talked about this during his episode, right? So a lot of what he's doing is content discovery based, finding those type like he has a really crafted word list that work really well on older targets and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So depending on what type of hacking you're doing, if you're doing a lot of dirt searching, if you have really good word lists already, and you want to go recursive and just have it go crazy fast and search through everything, Ferrex Buster, it's a great option. I like keeping it in my toolkit and just having it there if I need it. And it's, one of those things. We call it a toolkit because, there's no one size fits all for everything. So it's good to have lots of different things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes even just burp intruder or whatever automate for Kaido will get the job done. But, when you need something a little bit faster, more comprehensive, then you move to FUF or Ferrex Buster.
Yeah, whatever works.
On the note of burp in Kaido, I will say I have been using Kaido more and more recently. I've been using burp when it comes to some mobile stuff a little bit more, but sort of my default for the web is Kaido. And I will say there are still a decent amount of things that I kind of need and or things that aren't working perfectly. But I do have a pro subscription to Kaido. And if you take a Loom video and of the thing you don't like or the bug that's happening, and you send it in Discord to the Kaido team, they will get on that ASAP. And it's really easy. I don't know if you use Loom at all, Joel, but it's super. I love this tool.
That was a company
that
got popped recently, right?
Yeah. Okay. So yes, they did. Yes, but who hasn't been there? For one, for two, the convenience level is really high. So take it or leave it. But Loom is makes it really, really easy. It's one keystroke, and then I'm in a video with my head down at the bottom left-hand corner, and it's recording my screen, and it's really and then as soon as the video's over, it gives me a link to share the video, and I just love that. I love that. And so I can easily just, boom, spin up a Loom video, show the thing that I'm having trouble with, send it off to Kaido, and they get that stuff fixed. I also just want to say, go spend the $10 and get a Kaido Pro subscription. It's definitely going to be the route that the industry is going to go in the future. And it's very much a growing tool, and the sooner you're more familiar with it and the more you get to influence it as it grows, the better that product is going to be for you in the future. And while they're growing, you have the opportunity to be a big influence on that process. So go pick up a subscription and show them some love, and continue using burp for Android proxying or whatever other stuff like that comes your way.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I love Kaido. I use both that and burp, and there, like you said, there are just a couple little things where I think my requests would be not maybe things that they could tackle, because I want plugins and stuff. I don't know.
Actually, I have some inside information on that. I don't know how long it is going to be before they release it, but when that plugin system comes out, man, whew, that is going to be
huge.
Fire, man. The way that they're designing it on the back end is super nice.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really easily extensible. You're not going to have to be a Java developer. You're not going to have to deal with freaking Eclipse or whatever. I don't
have to install a separate Jython instance.
No, you don't. And so should be really clean and easy. Really looking forward to that. That's going to be a big feature that they're releasing within the next year for sure. So definitely looking forward to that.
Cool.
What you got?
I'll pick one off yours. Why don't you tell me about HTTPX?
Okay, yeah. So this one's great, and I'll actually combine this one with Gao as well, because I think they complement each other really well. So one of the things that I like to do often, and I've sort of mentioned this on the pod before, my approach is not really to go super wide on recon. It's just to sort of get the main functionality of the app. And a lot of time, the main functionality of the app is going to be fairly decently recorded in Gao, because Gao just can get those URLs somehow. I don't understand how, but it is. So especially when I'm first starting out, on a target, I'll often run the www or even just all of them with -- subs through Gao and enumerate all of the URLs and start looking for little sub applications is kind of what I call them, right? For example, this is one, man, I hope I don't lose some bounties by calling this out. But one of the ones where I found a lot of bugs before was www.instacart.com/potluck, which is like, there's no links to it from like the main website, or at least there wasn't at the time when I found it. But it's like this little weird sub application on Instacart that's like their own little like mini social media, right? So I went on there and I found a couple bugs, and
super weird.
Yeah, it's weird. And man, now after this pod is over, I need to go and just double check and make sure they haven't pushed any new functionality there. Why do I always get myself into these pickles? But yeah, so like I would have never found that if it wasn't just for Gao, or like, for example, Google site : whatever, and then just manually clicking through all the results and kind of processing it. But if you want to do it a little bit faster, then that's when HTTPX comes in, and you can just take the output of Gao, pipe it directly into HTTPX, and it will go, and you can literally just add like the status code flag and a couple other things. Just hit it with an HTTP request, show you the output status code. Hit it with an HTTP request, show you the output content type or whatever, like whatever you want. And it just makes it really easy. It feels really like awesome. You don't have to like write like all these for loops.
It's just like a one
bash.
little step.
Yeah, really clean sort of transition there. And I think it's something really nice to have in the toolkit, and it's really fast. So that helps too. It can help you kind of minimize those when you're going through Gao and you click every single link and it's like 404, 404, 404. And you're like, okay. Like, let's not spend our time doing this. So you just run it through HTTPX, get the output, and then only hit the ones that return anything interesting.
Cool. Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's that one. I know some power users of HTTPX can do some pretty crazy stuff with it. Nogly, I feel like Nogly. Also, one of the crazy things about Nogly, if you see him, he types so fast. Like I'm definitely a fast typer. I can type like 90 something words per minute. But Nogly is just like, it's like always above 110, and I'm just like, what the heck are you doing? Like it's foreign.
I'm like a really fast typer. My normal average, I'm like 120, like 130.
Are you serious?
Which is like,
gosh.
Listen, I'm gonna say really fast, and then
What the
there's
heck?
gonna be a million people in the comments being like, I type at 200. But I was gonna say, I know people who are like way faster than me because I don't touch type. Like I never learned how to properly touch type. So
Really?
I didn't take like a typing class or anything.
What?
And so I just like, I do like a combination. It's not hunt and peck, but it's like I use like 3 fingers on each hand. I like rarely use my like pinkies, and I only use one thumb and stuff.
You can still get to 117.
Yeah, man.
You're like, what
yeah,
the heck?
I mean, just like, I have my method, and I've tried to learn how to like properly type. I just can't do it. So like, I have so much props for those people. I tried to learn how to do steganography. I think it's called once, or stenography. With the
like that, with
the chords
weird,
and stuff. Yeah, like a court, the court reporters and stuff.
Yeah,
and they type at like 300 words a minute or whatever because they write like words with like keys. I don't know. I'm going down a tangent here, but yeah, dude. I wish I could type like correctly. Because I am not that I'm like not that fast.
Well, I always tell my little sister too, like she wants to be a writer, and she like does the 3-finger thing that you do, right? And she's still pretty fast. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but like if you're literally going to be doing this for the rest of your life, then you need to learn how to do it. But well, I won't introduce her to you, Joel, because that's a counter argument.
No, I'm not gonna. No,
hope you're not
tell
listening
her to
to
take
this,
like
go do your typing course.
Take a class, like an actual class. To go typing.com. They have like a touch typing course.
Yeah, that's crazy though. And I know just whenever but what I was going to say before with HTTPX was like, when he's pounding out like an HTTPX command, I just remember this one time like sitting next to him in the airport, and he's just like. And it's just like it was literally that fast that like the command line string was coming out with all the HTTPX parameters, and I was like, that's crazy. My gosh. So yeah, definitely a cool tool there. All right, you're up next. Talk to me about your okay, so this looks interesting. Home server with NAS storage and basic scanning tasks. That's what he's got in the doc. Hit me with that, Joel.
Yeah. So this is under my section of notes for VPS, and basically this is all about like the servers that I use for like scanning, for automation, for all that kind of stuff. Like, what is my structure, right? So I have 2 main things. I have a home server.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it in frame. It's behind me. It's on this rack right here. And then I also have a cloud server. I use a host called Digital Fire, FYRE, and it's pretty solid overall. I have really no complaints. They have multiple different data centers, so I keep mine in Texas. I'm based on the West Coast, but that way, if I'm on East Coast, West Coast, doesn't really matter. I have pretty much the same ping to it, so it's not like my server used to be on the East Coast, and I had like 80 ping to it or something, and that was super annoying. So I moved it.
Yeah.
I have a NAS set up on my home server. It's basically just like a giant RAID array, and I have that mounted through NFS onto different servers. So my cloud server has it mounted as a NFS share, and then I have it mounted on my computers as an NFS share, so I can always just drop a file in there. I can share it across either to the cloud or to my laptop or to my PC, whatever I need to do. I store like a lot of the target data. So if I'm doing a big scan, I'll output that file and then I'll copy it over to the NFS share, and then I'll just read it locally on my laptop or something like that.
Nice.
I use Digital Fire as my cloud host. Originally I tried to do all the scanning in-house on my self-hosted server.
Connection.
Yeah, exactly. Rip my internet connection, rip my IP, like all of it. It's just not worth it. You need a really, really durable, reliable uplink if you want to do that kind of stuff, because that's where the majority of your traffic's going to be going, is uplink, outbound requests. And residential home networks typically, especially in the US, don't have that. It's usually very cited towards your downlink, not your uplink. So I have like 1,000 down, 35 up. You know, it's like, it's like, so yeah, it just didn't work. Every time I would run a scan, it would saturate my whole network. I would lose connectivity on my other devices. It just wasn't worth it. If you get an IP ban, it's a giant pain in the ass. So $15 a month. I keep a Digital Fire VM in the cloud that I do all the like really heavy scanning with. And then if I'm doing something like less intensive, or I just want to do it on a Linux box, or I want access to different tools that are Linux only or something like that, a lot of that I'll do on the like the local bug bounty VM that I have on my home server.
Wait, so is this not a Linux box, your VPS?
My VPS, they're both Linux boxes. They both run Linux. Yep. And then within those, I mentioned that I have my NFS share that I keep a lot of the bug bounty target data on. I basically just have a couple folders, one called targets, one called tools. Targets has a subfolder for every target, like, Shopify, Verizon, whatever. And then the tools has different categories for like DNS, wordless, XXE, RCE, whatever. And within those, I'll have different payloads, different tools, just so that I can stay organized. And I can just access everything that I need to.
You're a pretty organized hacker, Joel. Like, as far as hackers go, like every time Joel and I are like, throwing notes in like a doc or something like that, I'll come back and it's like beautifully formatted and like highlighted, and there's like special hyperlinks. Like, I don't know what the thing you did in our content calendar for the podcast.
Chips?
Yeah, it's got like, I can like hover over this link and it like shows the doc. I don't know, it's super cool in Google Drive. So I feel like organization might be one of your strong suits in that sort of context.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the context. For me, I'm like super ADHD, so I have to organize things to some extent like ahead of time. Otherwise, it'll just like get really out of hand. Like I could definitely, I see people do this where they get into like a flow state and then they just start dumping files with like a.txt, b.txt.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Right? And it's like, that's really cool until you come back to it tomorrow and you're like, what the hell is a.txt?
Yeah, I always have to have like a sort of a self debrief after the whole thing is like, I get in like another text file named notes.txt this time, or notes.md, and be like, all right, this part of the payload's in a27.t, and so that's definitely, I should probably do it differently, but
I try to catch myself. Like if I catch myself doing it, I'll be like, okay, let me just rename this like something that makes a little more sense. It'll be more of a pain in the short term, but worth it in the long term. So I try to stay organized, just preemptively.
So you said you have your file system, part of your file system mounted on your VPS, right?
Yep.
So do you, and that's running, I mean, do you just port forward through your router? Is that what you're doing, just to let that service be exposed?
No, so I use a thing called Zero Tier. There's a couple other versions of this. Yeah, Zero Tier. I'm blanking on what the other versions are that exist that are very similar to this.
I feel like
but
I've tried this.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's basically just like a private network. It's like a private VPN, if that makes sense. Like a virtual, like VPN, virtual private network. It's that, but it's not in the common sense that you would think of VPN, right? If you think
Spell
of a VPN, zero ZEROTIER.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, zerotier.com.
That's kind of what I was searching for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's really cool. It's basically just like a little private network. There's one admin, and basically that's like you create the network, and then you're the admin. If any new devices want to come on to your network, each device has a unique device ID, and you have a unique network ID. You say, here's the network ID, the device connects. As an admin, you individually approve each device, so it's very strict, it's nice and secure. And then those devices basically they have a separate interface, just like VPN, right? Separate IP space, and you could just connect between any devices within that zero-tier network. You can connect to multiple zero-tier networks. So I have 2 different zero-tier networks that I use to expand the number of slots I have, plus to connect with other people that are separate, right? So it's pretty sweet.
Dude, that's awesome. I want to say Buses Can Fly recommended me use something similar like this, and I set it up so that my laptop could always like SSH into my desktop.
Probably Tailscale.
Yeah, Tailscale. That was what it was. Yeah.
Tailscale's the other like really similar like big one.
Yeah, I was having some serious problems with it though. Also, but I do WSL, so WSL just has problems with everything.
But I really like zero tier. It means that I basically don't have to expose anything. I don't have to have open ports. I don't have to like do any sort of weird stuff. It's all internal. As long as I connect to the VPN, I can access all my stuff at home. And that's what I do for my home, like rest of the stuff of my home server, right? Like I have a Plex server. I don't expose that shit to the internet. Hell no. I connect to it through zero tier. So yeah.
Nice. That makes sense. Zero tier. That's a great takeaway for this episode. Zero tier. If you're looking to sort of tie together your different infrastructure pieces, because I definitely have that issue all the time where I have a file on my server and then I gotta like SCP it down to there, and like it would just be much easier if I could just go and it would be there.
Yep.
That's great. That's a great tip. I got to take the time to set that up, I think.
Yeah. Why don't you tell me about your VPS setup? Because I know you had a couple things listed here as well.
Man, I shouldn't have let you go first.
Maybe I should have gone second.
So I've got a VPS on DigitalOcean. Back when I was in the Recon game, I had like a managed Kubernetes cluster on DigitalOcean. I would spin all that up. All my containers would go out, connect up through a central message broker, and kind of trade off pieces of information and, enhance data and keep it in a materialized view and push it to a GUI and also store it in a database, and as well as flat files. But those days are gone. I mostly just use my server now for scanning, on the fly. I use it for hosting POCs, and it's actually a really big server. It's like $100 a month or something like that. So I probably need to just like bite the bullet and like clean up all my crap and push it to a $15 a month thing, because $100 a month to host POC files is not great. But for the POC stuff, I've got a wildcard cert which I use on poc.rhenerator.com, and that's really helpful because I can sort of model attack scenarios for certain pieces of software. For example, if I've got like an open source piece of software or like a client side piece of software that I'm showing an attack for, I can just like put the files at one spot on the server and then just have someone go to like attackersite.poc.rhenerator and then victimsite.poc.rhenerator, and that demonstrates the difference of origin and that sort of thing.
Nice.
And so definitely recommend that, using certbot, something I can't remember the
Let's
name of
Encrypt.
it. Yeah, Let's Encrypt. There it is. Let's Encrypt for the TLS certificate, and that's been working really smoothly. But really, I mean, I don't really use PHP anywhere else, but it's just too convenient in Apache, and it's too simple for so many things. So I will just actually occasionally just pump out a PHP file for like basic stuff like setting redirects, custom redirects, or like even just like pulling parameters into URL parameters into a specific file at a specific spot, because it's just easier through PHP. So yeah, and then I also have this other file called dreader, and then I've got a status code. So like dreader 302.php, right? And that takes a parameter that's just like, URL. So whenever I'm testing for SSRFs, I can always hit that and then just pass into the URL parameter, and it will just, create a dynamic redirect to wherever I'm trying to go. And then I've got those for 303, 301, 307, 308, all of the redirect status codes. I use those all the time.
Nice.
And then I've also got like a sort of a callback domain that I use for HTTP callbacks that I've got set up, and it will just ping me on Slack with the full HTTP body whenever it gets a hit. And so I've been using that for like RCE callbacks or SSRF callbacks. I want to do something similar for DNS, but obviously if somebody figures it out and then starts spamming it, it's a little bit annoying. So
yeah. I'm curious, do you run into like Slack message limits and stuff? I probably would use Discord for that now because like Discord doesn't have message limits and all that kind of stuff.
Here's the thing, man. I pay for it. I pay because I used to put all of my. I need to go back and I've got like. Let me just write some notes down right here because I'm paying for way too many things right now.
He's like, hold on a second. This is a business expense.
This is like $107 a month I'm spending here. So let me write that down. Yeah, I need to cancel Slack and then DigitalOcean as well. Because I pay the $7 a month for Slack because it's just single user, so it's like $7. It's not a big deal. But I can search, all the way back and pull out anytime, a callback has hit, which is nice.
Nice.
And then the other thing I'll mention for my server, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing I'll mention for my VPS is that I will occasionally use whenever the PHP file isn't going to cut it, if I have like a more complicated logic that I have to articulate on an HTTP server side, I will just go ahead and set up like a reverse proxy in Apache, and then just run like a Python HTTP server on my like Flask or something like that on my local host, and just have it proxy to that at a certain path, and then outline that more complex exploitation logic in there. I just feel like it's easier to work with Python, and I want everything under, port 80 or port 443. So thus I have the reverse proxy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the whole like wildcard thing and all that like reverse proxying and stuff, that's another reason why I kind of like having two boxes where, like I run a Trafic instance for all my like HTTP routing and stuff. So I can do very similar to like what you do. I can set up a vhost that just points to like a different file or a different port or something, or I can just handle it separately, or I can just point it to a different IP address because I have a wildcard domain as well that I can just set up, whatever I want. You can actually have a wildcard as a catch-all, and then you can set specific ones to point elsewhere underneath that wildcard. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you can have like, star.example.com go to something, and then you can still have like sub.example.com go to something different than the wildcard, but the wildcard will catch everything else. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I do. Very, very, very similar setup. And like PHP, yeah, man, the goat. It's like
it's so simple, It's like what could be easier? It's just like
it's like one step further than Python. You know what I mean? Because like you don't even need to spin up like the server. You know what you just do it in the file. You just put it in. It's
just like writing HTML.
Arrow question mark.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Simplicity there is always good, and I think a lot of people have the opinion that hackers are like, and we do get on the edge of technology and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is that it works, and it works fast, and that we can iterate. This is just one of the things that I mentioned on the podcast before, but I'll say it again. Shubs is just like hacking genius, and this doesn't sound like that crazy, but like he told me once, he's like, dude, just write in whatever you can accomplish the goal in as fast as possible, because at the end of the day, as a hacker, that's what matters. You don't have to worry about optimizing this and that and the other thing. Just get the product out. And I think that's a great mentality as well from just like a startup perspective, is you want to prove the value of the product before you spend all the time, hyper engineering it. So just get something out there, get something taped together, get it working with Bash, and
as long as you don't name stuff a.txt.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly. As long as you don't shoot yourself in the foot with that
maybe
one.
Just a little descriptive name.
Yeah,
that's all.
Just storing the mistake I've made as well is storing like files that I'm actively working on in temp,
Oh no.
Yeah, that's a mistake, because if like your power cuts or like you restart your computer on a Windows update or something like that, those bye-bye.
Yeah. See you later, 10 files.
So, and I sort of mentioned this. I'll just kind of tack this on the end of the VPS thing. Python 3-m http.server is a command you can run to just like spin up an HTTP server in your current directory. Super duper helpful. Sometimes you just need to host a file, and you need to host a file quick, and Python's got your back on that. So love that.
Yeah. And I believe you can even specify a port as an argument, right?
Yep. It's
the first arg is the port, and then you can do -- bind, and you can set a bind IP too. So
nice.
Yeah. That is super useful. It just opens in your current folder. I use that all the time as well.
All right, let's see. Let's jump around. You already talked about FUF a little bit there, so you can take that one off the list. Let's do Go Witness. I've used this one as well, but I might have a different take. So go.
All right, yeah. So Go Witness, it's a screenshotting tool. Depending on what kind of recon I'm doing, especially if I'm doing very, very large scale recon, and especially on websites that have a lot of duplication. What I mean by that is like maybe it's a wildcard domain that will resolve to like a static landing page or something, right? So you can probably do a lot of this with curl and stuff, but with screenshots, it's kind of nice because it's a visual representation.
Yeah.
One, it's super easy to review. So you could just like scroll through. You can open 500 images, and you just scroll through, and as soon as you see something, go back and you'd be like, what is that? And then you can load it up and you can take a look. But one thing I like to do is I'll screenshot a whole list of URLs, and then I will run either a SHA hash or an MD5 hash on all the files, and I will dedupe them because if it's a static landing page, it actually screenshots one-to-one identical, right? So that means that if you have a bunch of the same web page that are under the same subdomain, you can group them together, and you can put them in a folder by hash that says, oh, okay, all these domains are the exact same thing, or like they're visually identical, right? And then that will also help narrow down those 500 images or whatever that you've got down to maybe like 50 or something. So I like to do that. It really depends on what kind of recon I'm doing. Generally, for like larger scale recon, that's what I'm going to be doing to help filter stuff down so I can see what stuff would look interesting. Because the way that I see it is, if I'm going to be reviewing this manually, I'm going to take the list of domains I have. I'm going to open them in my browser. I'm going to look at them with my eyes. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. This just puts it all in one place that I can review it quicker.
Yeah. And that's important, being able to get a visual look at stuff as well. It can really make some certain assets pop in the sea of assets that is so many of these organizations that we're looking at. Yeah. I used Go Witness for a long time, but one of the things, was it Aquatone or was it Go Witness? One of the two of them, they sent 2 HTTP requests for every one that you requested.
I think it's Go Witness because it checks HTTP and HTTPS.
Well, it does that, but then the other thing is, or I shouldn't say HTTP request, it instantiates 2 TLS connections, and one of them is to pull, is to do the HTTP request or HTTPS request, right? And then the other one is to pull the TLS certificate information. And when I was this is probably showing how much of a weirdo I was whenever I was doing my recon stuff, is I just totally fixated on that. And I was like, no, this sucks. Like, I cannot be sending I cannot have this overhead across, 5 million assets that I'm monitoring. So I actually read through like all this crazy documentation and wrote a script with headless Chrome to pull the TLS certificate information and do the HTTPS request in one request, which actually seems like it should be pretty doable, but was hella difficult. And I remember, I don't remember this whole process, and even though I'm looking at the code right now, it's not coming back to me super clear. But one of the things that I do remember was that like there was this gist that some random dude like put out there that just had like the keys to what I needed for this. And then I went back to reference it. I bookmarked it and I went back to reference it like years later, and it's gone. He deleted it. And I was like, who just goes and deletes that gist like that?
Damn.
Like, what are you doing, dude? So at some point I'll have to write some of this up, because having that done in one piece, I think is pretty it's pretty nice from an efficiency perspective. But
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Super cool.
All right. Let's see.
What about Prettier?
Okay. All right. Yeah. So this is another big thing. We talk about, man, Joel, we're going long on this episode already. All right. We thought this was going to be a quick one, but we gotta get back to the hacking, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Prettier, this is just my go-to script for JS beautification. So you pass it a JS file, and it does a really good job of beautifying it, and it very rarely errors out, which is nice. Some of the other ones, JS Beautify and some of the others, does that on a pretty regular basis with complex JS files. But Prettier just seems to do it. Also, it's the P in Prettier stands for parallelization, something like that. Parallelized. And so it's very fast, and it uses threads and that sort of thing. So great product there. Mixer, made by the Mixer team, RIP Mixer. So definitely check that out if you're looking for some JS beautification stuff. Okay.
Nice.
All right, Joel, I'm going to cross off all of the mobile stuff on your list here because we already
that's
do this
been
on
talked
the mobile
about.
episode.
We did a mobile episode 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, hit us with the word list stuff. This is just a good shout out.
Yeah, cool. So word lists, I mean, listen, everybody's got their own word lists. Some people make their own. Some people just use all.txt, whatever you want to use. The main ones that I use, Haddix is, all.txt, and all the other ones that he has. The sec lists I really like, and asset note. Those lists I really like. The asset note lists are built off of BigQuery, so they're like up to date. They're more like current-ish, like theoretically they're more like positive hits on what's going on like right now. Haddix is just like everything, and then the sec list is kind of like everywhere in between. There's some more like refined word lists in there. There's some more variant options if you want to target specific things. Words only, like the raft words. I like that because those are just words, and then you can add extensions to them if you want.
Yeah, I like that too. That's helpful.
So yeah, that's wordless.
All right, cool. So I'm just gonna look through here really quickly so that we can wrap it up and move to the reports. So
mass scan, we both have that one.
We both have mass scan.
Yeah, that's just crazy fast port scanning. That's it.
I've got DevTools on here as well, and I just wanted to mention a couple things that I've noticed that people are struggling with the mentees that I'm working with over the past couple weeks. So inside of DevTools, when you open it up in Chrome, you'll see right above your console input, there's a top little drop down, right? And it'll allow you to select the context. I don't know if there's a more specific word for this. Yeah, no, it actually says JavaScript context. Okay, if you hover.
Yeah.
You can select the context of where this code is running. So when you have a page that has a bunch of iframes or like interpage communication, you want to make sure that you are selecting the correct context for your JavaScript code to execute in, because otherwise you can get yourself in some pickles with origin stuff and thinking you have a bug and you actually don't. And this is also true, sort of, on the sources tab as well. There's some stuff that will only appear when you have. Let's see if I can find a good example of this. I'm going to just open up. Yeah, sources. There is no. I mean, this one doesn't really have it either. Let's see if this one does. Yeah, there's threads. That's the name of it, of what it's called in sources. So if you open up a page, will be different threads that you can select within the browser, and this will automatically change the context. So that's, once again, I know we're in audio medium here, but that's the Sources tab in DevTools on the right-hand side, threads. And it's only there if there are multiple threads running. And so sometimes selecting those threads will actually get you different results for stuff like the Global Listeners tab and stuff like that, which is where you enumerate your listeners for that specific page, your post message listeners and such.
I've never seen that, or maybe I've never noticed it. What website are you using to see it?
I just have Twitter open. So just go to Twitter, and you're only going to see like serviceworker.js.
Oh,
do you see that though?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't even know you could
and so like you
those.
can select the other thread and then, go to global listeners and go to message. And then sometimes there's like additional post message listeners there. And then you can also do this on the left-hand side in the page drop down. If you select like a page that has an iframe, you can go in there and like select that specific frame, and that will update some stuff on the right-hand side as well. So don't be missing out on some of the post message listeners that are defined in the global listener section of the sources tab on DevTools. Just because you don't have the correct tab selected or thread selected, kind of fiddle around with that. Make sure you know what's going on. And then also in the console area, make sure you're selecting the correct JavaScript context for your code to be executing in, to make sure that there isn't some sort of implicit post message origin check or something like that that's occurring, and it's just slipping by because you're executing it in the context of the same thing as the page, rather than in like your own domain or like the parent domain. So good tips there.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Okay, so we should talk about our command line tools, because you've got some cool ones that I want to know about in yours. But before we do that, I'm going to mention two things. One, keyboard shortcuts. I have configured Espanso to like help me with some of my automated typing stuff. So essentially, you just type colon and then type like a string, and then it will automatically replace it with the string that you want to. For example, I don't have my server IP memorized, and sometimes I need the IP rather than the DNS record. So I'll type colon server IP, and it will just auto fill in my server IP. And it does this at like an input level on the keyboard. So it works in lots of different environments as well, which is really cool.
That's really cool. I've never heard of this, and I do a lot of this with bash scripts. So like,
do you really?
I have one called public IP. Like I have a bash shortcut called public IP that does like a dig. It calls a dig command that returns your public IP, and like that's what I use for getting my public IP.
Yeah, and so you can actually call out, like in your Espanso configuration, you can have it run shell commands and then show the output. So it like I've got one for colon EIP, external IP, it just makes a request to IP info, and pulls my external IP address that I'm working from. So that's a really cool one.
That's cool.
And then the other thing I have is keyboard shortcuts for things like URL encoding, URL decoding, JSON beautification, base64 encoding and decoding, whatever is in my clipboard, which is extremely helpful when you're trying to do stuff that's like, all right, now you URL decode it, and then you JSON beautify it, and then you modify it, and then you JSON minify it, and then you URL encode it, and there's just so much friction. But then like once you have those things on a keyboard shortcut, you can just go, Control Shift U, Control Shift I, and then you just kind of got that muscle memory there, and it stops taking friction on your brain and allows you to focus on the hacking. So really, I can't tell you how much this has changed my life, like just having the keyboard shortcuts for those sort of things. That's big.
That's super neat. I use Clipboard a lot as well. I rely on it. Sometimes I'll pipe in Bash, but more frequently what I'm doing, I'm using a IPython. And IPython, I just have it in like a tab in my browser.
Yeah, tell me about that.
And I have a little script that I wrote. I call it PyHack, and it's just like a bunch of little shortcuts that I'll tie back in. They'll basically just be like aliases to other modules, or maybe like little definitions that call a function within a module. And they'll do things like, I have one for hex encoding, base64 encoding and decoding, just on like literally the keyword B64D. So I'll type B64D, I'll call it, and then I use a module called Paperclip, which is it's a cross OS clipboard reading and writing module. So you just import from Paperclip, import copy and paste, and then those are two functions that you can call to copy and paste to your clipboard. So I'll do B64D paste, and then it'll print out whatever, base64, or I'll do copy B64D paste, and then it'll recopy whatever it decodes, and I'll chain those together very similar to what you're doing. But I'll just do it in Python.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was wondering what IPython was, because I use Python a lot, but I grew up writing Python, so I always just write it in a script and run it instead of using some of these like IDEs. So I mean, is that just an IDE for Python?
No, so IPython, it's basically it's a REPL, right? It's just like an interactive Python console. Okay. It's a Jupyter notebook essentially. You have access to like the percent like Jupyter type notebook type macros and stuff.
So it's like okay.
Yeah, but it's like it's syntax highlighted, like new lines. It's like a Python console, but like
That's nice.
functional. It's like usable. It has like syntax highlighting and suggestions and drop downs and like colors and yeah. So it's really nice.
Good stuff. Yeah, I might have to check that out at some point. I think a lot of it's just kind of on muscle memory for me already, but
yeah.
I could integrate this seamlessly. That'd be really helpful.
I mean, it's just like typing, right? You find whatever works for you, and then if you can do that faster than what makes sense to like relearn it, then
what are you saying, Joel? You trying to like shit on the people that know how to actually type here?
No, what I'm saying, I'm saying like
whatever works for you, people that don't type at the
whatever works for you. Hey, if you can do it as fast or faster, then don't even bother relearning it because it's probably not worth it. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So definitely cool thing there, keyboard shortcuts. All right, let's talk about the command line tools. So like inside of the base set, let's see, what is the overlap here? We've both got sed, we've both got awk.
Sed, awk, JQ,
grep, of course.
Vim.
The trusty old database, grep.
Yeah, grep. Yeah, okay, grep, obviously searching strings,
Yeah.
It's just like, you need to search something within something else, grep. Okay, if you want to do it with regex, you can either use egrep or you can use RG, which is ripgrep, which is like...
Ripgrep is amazing.
Yeah, you put that on your list. I probably should have put it on my list, but ripgrep, it's... I mean, you can look at the speed tests, the benchmarks and stuff, but it's way faster. It's written in Rust. It's insanely fast. It has tons of features. If I'm searching anything remotely large, I'm using ripgrep because it's way faster.
Joel and I recently used this to just search entire file systems. We pulled a file system off of a device and then literally just ripgrepped across the whole file system for a specific text. One little tip, when you are using that, don't forget the -a parameter so that it doesn't ignore binary files.
Just like with grep. So yeah, ripgrep, super awesome. Less top head cut. It's just like, things to view large buffers of text without taking up your entire terminal or to search within them. There's a lot of different tools that do a lot of very similar things that are built into Linux, like
what is
head and top.
FZF?
FZF. Fuzzy find. So FZF, it's an awesome tool. It's like an extension. I think you like install it in your shell. But basically it adds two main things, Control R and Control T.
Okay, I think you've mentioned this before.
Yeah, I think we talked about this maybe off air, but basically like if you use Control R in your terminal, it'll let you reverse search through your bash history. Yeah. And fuzzy find basically extends upon that. So it lets you fuzzy find through your bash history. So if you don't exactly type the exact command, it will still search and it'll still show you suggestions that roughly match, basically getting fuzzier as it goes up. And you can do the same thing for files on the file system. So if in your current folder, you just Control T or you type FZF, it'll do the same exact fuzzy search, but for files within your current folder. So that's like really useful for like
in VS Code.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Control P, your command palette or your file switcher in Visual Studio Code. Very, very similar. It's really awesome. I use it multiple times a day, every single day. In conjunction with that, ZSH, that's my preferred shell. I used Bash for a while. It's pretty good. I like ZSH more. I don't really know why. I think it's just more customizable. I think it's more friendly. I especially use Oh My ZSH as a it's basically just like a plugin like module thing that sits on top of it that makes it easier to add extensions. And then I use Power Level 10K as my theme.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think those are all really essential lists there. I know we're just kind of rattling them off, but we should probably just throw them into the description just so people can know, what kind of command line tools they need to know.
Yeah, this will be one of those things you're going to want to like sit at your computer. We're going to read one word, pause, go search it, check it out, read another word, or and we'll try and put a whole list of the links in the show notes as well. Solid.
Okay. So this is I've got two more things here, and one of them kind of flows into the report. So I'll talk about this one first. So my life changed one day when was it? Hold on. Let me see if I can. The poster's right over there. Unfortunately, I'm blind, so I can't see it. But it was in London. I want to say it was 2019. sitting down there with Tom Nom Nom and Stoke at a live hacking event, and they recorded this video. And before they recorded this video, I was sitting at this table with them. And essentially in the video, which I'll link, I keep on saying the video, but it's a video about Tom Nom Nom and Stoke explaining Bash for hackers, pretty much. And one of the main things that Tom shows in this is like how to use Vim as a tool to manipulate input. And we were kind of talking about like how if you get the output from a tool and it's super large, all these tools like, head and less and top and more and those sort of things that allow you to manipulate, and not show the whole buffer on your screen and just, bomb your terminal. Well, you can just pipe this stuff into Vim Dash and it just throws it into a Vim buffer. And then, you can just execute additional commands by just doing %bang, and you can just chain commands together and all of it's just in a Vim buffer and you can search through it easily. And it's just so nice. And so really I just this one video that Stoke and Tom Nom Nom put together changed my efficiency on the command line for the rest of my life. Like I'm still making gains on efficiency from this. And so definitely learn how to use Vim properly to limit your buffer that you're seeing and chain it through different commands.
Yeah, I mean, Vim is one of those tools. I learned how to use it back in college. It was something I was super averse to originally.
Yeah.
I was like a hardcore nano user, it's always it's a battle,
oxymoron, like hardcore nano user.
Hardcore nano user. Yeah, I don't think there really are hardcore nano users, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right. So I tried out Vim, and the thing about Vim, it's one of those things that as you learn, the more that you learn, the easier it gets. Okay. Things you're going to notice patterns that are very common. Vim was written by programmers, so it's like it's very systemic and logical. You just have to understand the logic systems that they're using, right? It's
written
just
by programmers, as most programs are.
Yeah, you'll be like, why if I press HJKL? Well, because touch typing, right? It's like you have to think about and then if you understand the reasoning behind it, it makes more sense. So a lot of Vim can be confusing at first, but if you take a little bit of time and you understand the underlying reasons, it'll make a lot more sense and it'll make your workflow significantly faster. You're gonna learn like little keybinds. For example, okay, here's one. If you're gonna exit a file, most people do either :WQ or maybe :W then :Q. If you do if you do colon lowercase x, it will write if it needs to and exit.
No,
you've got to be
kidding me.
Colon lowercase x.
Hold on.
Just colon x. Yep.
Vim test.txt, blah blah blah, lowercase x. What the heck?
Yep.
Dude,
and
it's
if
not
there's
even
no
that
changes,
hard to
it doesn't write.
Vim X makes perfect sense. It's the thing you click on up at the corner anyway.
Yeah, it does both. So that's like a super. I love that one. I use that one all the time. Another one. This is like really verbose, but basically, if you've been in this situation where you're editing a file and you're about to save it and you realize I'm in read-only mode, or I didn't run this with sudo and I don't want to remake these changes.
Tell me right now, man.
It's :W space bang sudo t %. Okay.
What?
And it basically writes it and then it runs sudo t as a command and it pipes it back in. And then it'll be like, do you want to reload the file? And then you load it and you're good.
Wait, but what if you're in a directory that doesn't, like, you can't write?
You would have to have sudo.
Is it write to like a temp buffer or something?
I mean, you could change where it writes to. Instead of giving it %, you could just
okay, I'm sorry. I need to do this right now. So Vim. So okay. So
yeah,
let's
I'll
say
send it to you.
Sudo su. All right, I'm hopping into root. I'm changing this. I'm changing the permissions on this file. It's test, and then I'm jumping out of root. I'm trying to write as test here. Can I write? Okay, no, I messed up my permissions. Okay. You know what? I'm not even going to do this on air. Joel, you have to
Yeah.
do this
Okay, so basically all you have to know is that colon, like if you do :W and then after that you do like space !, cat, for example, it'll write the current buffer it'll pipe it to that command. Okay. So it would be like, if you have all the stuff in a file and you like did :W !, cat, it would pipe the stuff from the file into cat. Okay. So similarly, you can pipe that into sudo t, like the T command, TEE, to append stuff to a file, right? And percent in Vim is the file name that's associated with the buffer. So you're saying pipe the current buffer into sudo t file name, and then that's how you're actually writing it with sudo. And then after you write that, Vim will be like, hey, the file was modified. Do you want to reload it? And you'll click yes, and then it'll have your changes there, and then you could just quit.
No way. Okay. Hold on. I've got my I've got my test environment up. So I can't write. It says read only, and I pipe it into sudo t
percent.
Percent.
Yep. And that'll be your current file. If you don't have a file, then you could just put your file where percent is.
What the heck? My life has changed.
Pretty dope.
Dude, I run into
That's a big one that I use
all the time. That makes so much sense. I don't know why I didn't, because I always what I always end up doing is end up like sudo or I end up writing it to like temp and then like getting out sudoing, then copying it from temp back to where it is. This happens all the time when I'm trying to modify my Apache configuration or whatever.
Yeah, you forget to run it with sudo, you make a bunch of changes and then you got to undo and start over and
super annoying. Wow. Life-changing things being dropped on this episode, man.
Yeah.
Joel, I think we need to just sit down sometime and like, I just need to like, Joel, tell me things that I don't know about the technologies that I use every day, because that is really helpful. Okay. Okay, yeah, we're at like an hour 10. Dude, there is no short episode with us. There really is.
No, I mean, this one is like really hard because there's like so much nuance to all these tools. I think it's important to understand. Like the thing that I explained with Vim, right? Like that is a perfect example of understanding like what you're doing, right? Instead of just like blindly like copy pasting like :w exclamation point, right? Like what is it doing? Oh, it's writing the buffer, it's piping it into a command, it's using t, percent means the file name. Now I get it. Now I could do that for anything else. I could change it with other commands. I can, use this functionality anytime I run another Vim command. So you just have to understand the fundamentals, and then
that's awesome.
That really helps a lot.
That's great. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into the next one, and then I'm gonna take that right into the report section. So cool. The next one that I wanted to talk about was DNS Chef. This is a tool that Mr. Tux Racer introduced to me a while back. It's essentially a tool that allows you to just kind of run a DNS server on the fly, and you can like spoof DNS records. You can get DNS callbacks. So like, for example, if you're trying to do a DNS callback that doesn't go through Collaborator, then you can do it through DNS, just like set your own domain, set your VPS as the authoritative name server for that, section of your domain, spin up DNS Chef, run it on port 4 or on port 53, and then you'll get the DNS callback there. And so I was trying to find some reports that were using some of the tools here. And obviously, a lot of the tools that we're talking about here are just kind of workflow tools. They're not really
it's like all my reports use these tools.
Yeah,
like
literally
I use Vim all the time.
Exactly. Vim is in every single report that I write. No, but DNS Chef was one of the ones that actually like had a pretty tangible result. And it was a pretty weird program that I reported a bug to with this. And essentially what the program wanted to do was they wanted to check and see whether we could establish a reliable reverse shell or a reliable shell of any kind inside of their VDI environment that they had set up. And there was a very stringent set of rules for like the servers you could communicate with over HTTP and HTTPS. So it was kind of tricky. And we found a couple ways to do it. Tip, there's a proxy that you can use inside of Google. So if any of the Google services you are using, you can use Translate to the Google Translate service to open up a page inside of Google Translate.
Oh, you're taking me back to like
this is
computer hacking when I was like a preteen.
Exactly. Yeah. This is like how you get around your school.
Yeah, exactly. The web filter. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was one way that we were able to do it. Another way we were able to do it was by a DNS shell. And instead of using like some of all this crazy stuff out there, I said, you know what? I'm going to take 5 minutes. It ended up taking like 2 hours to write my own little DNS shell here But it would have taken a lot longer if DNS Chef wasn't around, because it just makes it really easy to hook into. If you read the code, there's a pretty clear spot to hook into it and handle a TXT request, a DNS TXT request. And so I just wrote like a little 20-line client on the client side that like pings the server for a command, runs the command, gets the output, hex encodes it, and then sticks it in a DNS request back out to my server, and made that little reverse DNS reverse shell within Python, and that fulfilled the requirements and got us the bounty for establishing a reliable shell outside of their VDI environment. So I think sometimes the takeaway here is just kind of like, you got to, Joel, I know you're an avid listener of My First Million as well. Love that podcast. But one of the things they say on there is just do cool shit, just find the stuff that's cool and then do that. Right. And then do it. Yeah. And I think this was one of those things for me that was just kind of like, okay, I would like to be able to write a DNS, reverse shell in Python. And so took some time, did it, got the cool bounty for it. And I always try to go down those routes whenever I see these goals that people set up. We talked about, for example, breaking out of root detection. Like you know that's going to be possible because you control the app with Frida. So you should always be able to break out of, root detection. So doing something like that and doing something like this, where they like guarantee bounties for things that are possible, just go and do it. And it gets you a lot more deeper understanding of some of these things that are possible on the border. So,
yeah. I think it's like that perfect combination between like CTF kind of like hack the box, like training type of stuff, and real world, like get a bounty for what you're doing, because you're combining real world with the challenge, right? Like you see the challenge, all you have to do, solve the challenge, right? Okay. Well, you the constraints, you're within this environment, figure a way out. So
for sure,
I love those types of things.
Yeah, same. And that mixes well with your puzzler
yeah,
stuff
that tickles my puzzle brain really hard.
It does. All right, man. I think that's it. I guess I know we were planning on talking about some hardware hacking stuff at the end of this episode, but let's push that to a different episode. And we'll, more deep dive it, because I've got some really cool like tools you're teaching me how to use like right over here, and I'm excited to get on the pod and talk about those. So we'll do that at a different time.
Super awesome. All right, catch you next week.
Sweet, that's the pod.
See ya.
Yo, thanks for listening to this episode of Critical Thinking Bug Bounty Podcast. If you wanted to, you could go over to Twitter at CTBB Podcast, give us a follow, or maybe even subscribe at Critical Thinking Podcast on YouTube. But the thing that would make you the real MVH would be simply just telling your friends and hacker fellows about the pod. Word of mouth is one of the biggest ways that podcasts grow, so spread the word. Thanks. See you next week.